All right, we're going to talk about the neuron first. So everything in here that includes our nucleus is going to be our soma or cell body. All right, so then we have these extensions that are coming off of the cell body. These extensions are receiving, so these would be part of the receiving system. So these are our dendrites. And then we have all of these little kind of knob structures here that are going to be transmitting signals from adjacent neurons. So these are our synaptic knobs. Then we have our axon hillock. So it's going to be right around here. So this would be our axon hillock. And then we have the rest of our axon. So if we go down over here, right, this cell is going to be a Schwann cell. And remember, it wraps itself many, many, many times. So all these little layers that you can see are going to be your myelin sheath. And again, those are the layers that are made up by those Schwann cells. Then we have the continuation of this structure right down the middle, right? So we can also ask it here, that's our axon. We have our spaces in between those Schwann cells, which typically you're not supposed to see any myelin sheath. So those would be nodes of Ranvier, or you can also say neurofibril node. All right, so let's continue on to look at the actual brain, or actually let's look at the spinal cord for a bit. So let's take a look at this image down here. So on the spinal cord, right, we have two kind of distinct regions. We have this region out here, which is going to be our white matter. Two T's. And then this would be our gray matter. Okay, so let's talk about the gray matter first. So over here, number 5 is going to be tagging our posterior horn. This one would be our lateral horn. And then over here we have our anterior horn. Remember, posterior, so pointy posterior, right? This is the more pointier side. And then right down the middle we have this specific region here on the gray matter, which is called the gray commissure. So 2 S's, sorry. And then we also have this little canal here that number 9 is pointing at, which you can't really see, but it's a little opening. There's going to be your central canal. And then we also have the white matter, right? So this entire region over here would be your lateral column. Or you can say funiculus, right? So whichever one you want to type out. So lateral column or lateral funiculus. Over here on the anterior portions would be anterior column. And then on the back side, this entire region would be your posterior column. We also have these extensions that are coming off. So back here, we're still on the back side, so this would be our dorsal root. This is our plump DRG, right? So it gets a little bit thicker. So DRG stands for dorsal root ganglion, right? A gang of cell bodies that are located here, and that's why it's really kind of large. Up here would be your ventral root on the anterior side. And then when they come together, right around here, that is your spinal nerve, which again has both motor and sensory information. So let's take a look at some brain structures now, right? So there are a couple of lobes that we got to ID first. So before we get into those lobes, right, remember if we tag any of these folds, right, the folds are called gyrus or gyri for plural. And then the grooves that sit within the brain, right, those grooves that are made up by the folds are called your sulci, right? And then we have these different kind of distinct regions here. So everything right here would be your frontal lobe. Everything right around here in purple would be your parietal. Back here you have your occipital. And then everything over here would be your temporal. And then down here we can also appreciate another structure, which is your cerebellum. All right, so let's keep looking at some structures. There's a couple of fissures that we want to kind of ID. So the first fissure is going to be located between our temporal and parietal and frontal. So this fissure right here, this border, is called your lateral fissure, or you can also say lateral sulcus. It's fine with me. Back here, dividing our cerebellum from our superior kind of cerebral hemisphere, this is going to be our transverse fissure. I don't know why it looks like that. Transverse fissure. And then the last one you need to know is going to be located in between the left and the right portions of the brain. So this is your longitudinal fissure, right? It's going on along a longitudinal kind of axis here. All right, let's keep going. So we have right around here a couple of structures that you can see from the mid-sagittal view, and we're just going to kind of go over all of them. So right around here, this is the one I said that kind of looks like a Nike swoosh, right? So this structure here is going to be your, it also is kind of like a C shape. So this is your, right, corpus callosum. That's your corpus callosum, connecting the left and right parts of your brain. Right here, everything that I'm highlighting, this would be your septum pellucidum. So septum pellucidum. And then we have the diencephalon. So the diencephalon is located underneath our septum pellucidum. So it's going to be everything in this region here. So remember, for your diencephalon, you have this like anterior structure, which is your hypothalamus. And then behind it, right around here, would be your thalamus. Thalamus would be this region. And then there's one structure that's missing here, but usually it's like this. It's like little, kind of like a little ball right here. This is your pituitary gland. Remember, that's responsible for endocrine, pituitary gland. And then let's take a look at some other structures, right? So after the diencephalon, which again was everything here, we have our brainstem, which is everything kind of below. So there are a couple of structures that we can see. So this first region, everything in here, so no matter what it includes, this is your midbrain, the entire region. This would be your pons. And then down here we have the medulla. Right, so there's some extra structures that we can see from this view. So you can barely see it, but right around here, right, you have these lateral kind of like columns. Those are your cerebral peduncles. You can't really see them from this view again, but there should be right around there. Also in the midbrain, there's a passageway, right? Does everyone see, hopefully, this passageway here? That is going to be your cerebral aqueduct. So that's an E. cerebral aqueduct. Remember, the cerebral aqueduct drains into the next kind of passageway, which is right around here, this triangular space. That is your fourth ventricle. Remember, that's sandwiched in between your cerebellum and the pons. And then we also have the, let's see, we are missing corpora quadrigemina. So let me see if we can if we have a photo of it. Hopefully we do. Yeah, so this one right here, right? So remember, this is a kind of funky looking image, but this is going to be our thalamus, kind of in 3D on both ends. And then these 4 bumps here, right? The entire thing is called corpora quadrigemina. So quadrigemina. Corpora quadrigemina. Right. So from this view, we can also see a couple of other structures, right? So here's our frontal, here's our temporal lobe, and then the first thing is going to be these little, so right here, number 28, that is your olfactory bulb. And then we can see over here, number 30, right, that is your optic nerve. So your optic nerve is right there. When they cross, you get optic chiasm. And then right around here, when it's kind of, those fibers are going to the back, you get optic tract. Okay, so let me draw that X for you, right? So pretend that this is your eye. This is going to your eyeball. This is your eye, right? So those fibers from this part of your eye are going here, and they're going to be crossing here, going to the backside. Fibers from here will be crossing, going to the backside, through the optic chiasm, through the optic tract. So again, those different kind of regions are optic, so optic nerve. When they cross, optic chiasm. And then finally, after they're done crossing, optic tract, going to the deeper parts of the brain. And again, you can see that here. So let me try to zoom in a little bit more. So again, I'll just do ON for optic nerve. When they cross right down the middle, optic chiasm. And then when they are done crossing, optic tract. Awesome. So then you also have these regions here, which you can see just a little bit. So number 15, those were those cerebral peduncles. And then if we kind of zoom out a little bit more, right, this entire region is your pons. Then we have medulla. And then the last region down here, these kind of bumps, these would be your cerebellum. All right, so I think that's it for your different key terms. So remember to kind of go back through these and understand where the different regions are. Oh, one last thing, right? So don't forget that gray model, right? So I know right here it's just an image, but remember for this gray model, you just have to know 2 regions, your cerebral aqueduct and then your 4th ventricle. So that was that kind of grayish ventricle, that grayish model that we have in the classroom. All right, best of luck.